So, Jeremy, welcome to the Bad Marketing Sucks show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I love the name. It's awesome.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Yes.
very much. We enjoyed ourselves. Glad to have you today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got a long history of branding and marketing in the area in Georgia,
Yep.
in the Augusta, Georgia area in particular. Tell us a little bit about your background and who you are.
Sure. I think by you've got a lot of history means you're old, so I'll take that as it's all right, Chad.
Yeah.
I think you're maybe just a little bit older than I am, possibly.
No, I'm not. You're older
Oh,
than
I'm a
me.
little bit older.
And
Okay, I
Paul is
gotcha.
older than all of us.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow. There you go.
I mean, if you count,
He doesn't look it, but
if you count how many kids I have, then yes, I'm older than all of you guys.
Man, so you can see that I've got a bunch of comic books, posters, and stuff in my office, and I love all that. And I wanted to be a comic book writer and a producer, and so that's what really got me started in the whole gig. And I borrowed some money from my grandparents in the early '90s or mid '90s, and tried my hand at running a comic book company, and promptly lost all the money because we had bad marketing. Right, so there's a testimony
boy.
right there. Probably ought to have some good marketing. Probably ought to have some business experience beyond being 19 years old. So that was also kind of a downside. I also realized that comic book writers and artists, like 99% of them, are struggling, and it's not an easy road to go. And only a few of them break out. And I found out even the guys that were making, writing Spider-Man and the X-Men back in the '90s weren't hardly making any money because they worked for Marvel. So it was just, unless you had a big screenplay take off or something, you were going to be stuck. But I did realize that I loved putting the books together. I liked the fonts, I liked the colors, I liked publishing, I liked being in front of people, telling the story of why we had made the comics together. My dad had been in sales, so sales and marketing was kind of in my blood, and then the graphic design and the artistic side came into play, and that meant that I could make more money on the side doing graphic design and that type of stuff than I could ever trying to do comics. So comics became a hobby, and I still love it. It's fun. I've worked as a graphic designer for the Augusta Apartment Finders Guide way, way back. That's how I got my first gig. Really
Wow.
enjoyed doing that.
now
Yeah.
you're dating
Yeah.
yourself here.
Oh
So
yeah,
continue.
man. And then there was this thing called the internet. I'm not sure if you know. Al Gore created it back in the mid '90s, and
heard of it,
after Al Gore did that, we decided that we probably ought to learn how to use it. So I taught myself basic HTML, CSS, and at that point, do you guys remember Flash websites, Macromedia
Yes.
Flash?
Yeah,
So I learned how to do Flash. Built some websites. Had enough side business going that I quit the Apartment Finders Guide, started my own business with my brother, Mace Graphics. That continued to grow. And when you're doing freelance, and back in the day, and I guess I'm more of a Generation X kind of guy, if somebody asks you to be able to do something, the answer is yes, right? I think nowadays there's this whole kind of millennial and Generation Y that's saying, stay in your lane and only do one thing and maximize it. And I just don't have that. I'd rather jump around. If somebody asks me to do something, I'm going to tell them yep, and I'm going to figure out how to make that work. And so I would learn how to do advertising. I'd learn how to do banner ads. I'd learn how to build websites. I'd learn how to put together a marketing plan. I'd learn how to put together a branding strategy. And over the years, did pretty good. Built up a business, and then was bought out by TaxSlayer. So TaxSlayer is a great local company in Augusta and Evans, and worked there for a few years. Then went back out on my own and worked as a book cover designer for Amazon.com, which was really fun, and got a few other artists and paid them to do some of the work. So ended up outsourcing a little bit of that. That was great. And then in 2008, there was this great web property called MySpace. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. But
Yeah, Paul he was a big MySpace guy.
You know what? Honestly, I think my MySpace is still.
Yeah, I
out
think
there.
it is. You
It
gotta-
might exist,
Michael
dude.
Jackson is your.
We've got like
approach.
7 million.
I think it's.
We got like 7 million notifications stuck in
And
it.
it
Chad,
exists
you know
in
you
my-
had a MySpace.
Yeah, I think it's right next to my Hotmail account.
Yeah,
Exactly.
His profile picture is Michael Jackson Thriller. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, I was using MySpace on Netscape Navigator, and back in the day. But back in 2008, Facebook had just come along, and Twitter was in its infancy. Social media was really getting started, and there were no real digital agencies in Augusta. And so I had a guy come and say, "Hey, would you like to create I think you'd be great to run it. Will you want to partner together and let's create a digital advertising agency?" And we did, and the most awesome thing was we were working for the traditional agencies at the time. There were lots of them in Augusta, and we were doing their digital work. So we would do social media strategy, we would run Google Ads, we would do all of that. And over the next 10 years, between 2008 2018, all of the work that we had done, we would do a good job. We would end up getting more ad spend. And all of those larger agencies said, "Why are we paying these guys to do it? We need to hire our own." So it was over time, we became we integrated traditional agency and consulting, and then they all integrated digital. And now everything's digital. And that's one of the things I was going to talk about, like what's the difference in nowadays, marketing now versus marketing then, like what are the changes I've experienced.
Yeah.
That's probably the big one, is traditional needing digital and digital needing traditional. They're merging together. But where I see the separation happening is between marketing and advertising. Those things are pulling further apart, whereas the branding and the marketing is congealing into one thing, and advertising's almost its own baby. And the people that are really good at advertising aren't necessarily really good at branding and marketing. And you need both on your team. Obviously, you got to have people that do both. And there are agencies in town and organizations that have both, but it's rare that you've got a one-man show that can really kind of do it all. So that was it. Then I sold that company in 2018 to a local development company that was more focused on software development, and they wanted advertising and marketing to be a part of their team. Worked there for several years, and then more recently have focused on a really cool ministry project where we're building a discipleship app, and we've got some different opportunities for it. And so my world has really changed. I've done everything from being a creative director to a graphic designer to a sales guy to leading teams of creatives and all those things. So how's that? Did that do it?
Yeah, well, I love that. That leads me right into my next question based on your experience here. In your opinion, where do you feel like most businesses go wrong with their branding, marketing?
Okay, I've got it's two things. First off is budget. Second is attribution. So budget and
Let's talk
attribution
about the
are two
budget
things.
a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Nobody spends enough. Nobody spends
Well,
enough.
not in the. They do eventually.
You mean initially?
Well, yeah, they have to. Yeah, initially. So that's a great point, Paul. The thought is we're going to create this great product, or we've got a restaurant and it's going to be so good everybody's just going to come and show up, or we've built this app and people are going to use it once and it'll just spread like wildfire, or we've got this business and they're going to find out about us and word of mouth is going to do it. And even with word of mouth, marketing in today's world involves marketing automation. So email marketing is falling underneath that. Communicating to your clients. You've got to have a website. You need to have a content strategy. There's just a ton of that. And that all takes time and money, and nobody wants to put that in. And so they undercut it, and then they find themselves in a hole that they've got to reinvest to dig themselves out of. And if they would go into it with the right mix, look at that 20% of your operations going into marketing. That's a big number for a lot of people. They can't imagine that it would take that. But the successful businesses time after time are the ones that are investing in that budget. So that's my thoughts on budget. What do you think, Chad? Do you think that's right?
And the next one was strategy. Is that what you said?
No, next one's Attribution. Everybody's got a strategy.
Attribution.
Okay.
They may have a
Right.
bad strategy, but they've got a strategy.
Right. Right.
But attribution is almost completely lacking, right? There, and what I mean by attribution is you're running an ad campaign. You spend $1,000 a month on that ad campaign. Do you know what that $1,000 brought you? How can you attribute the dollars to performance? Have you thought about the value of just showing somebody your ad versus them clicking on your ad? How do you attribute billboards, right? How do you attribute podcasts like this? Like, there's extreme value in content marketing, but if you don't have an understanding of what it's bringing you, how your website's converting, looking at that full marketing funnel going all the way down to the bottom and being able to attribute at each stage, you are going to be guessing on your budget, which is already a problem. You've already told you're not going to spend enough. Now you're going to be guessing on what's working. And then you're also not going to value your partners or your employees. So if you're working with an agency and you don't attribute any value to them, you're going to be ticked off and you're going to jump to another agency in a year, right? And that's what happens. We see
Agency
companies
surfing.
burn through agency surfing. It happens all the time. And it's because attribution is not set up. So I feel like you're, as a marketer, as somebody that's talking to people about branding and marketing, it's our job to talk about how important attribution is, because they can't really judge your performance unless they've got attribution in place. And if you're working with somebody that doesn't have attribution in place, you better have it in place for them so that you can prove it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it does. Yeah.
There you go.
Absolutely. Well, and what does that go back to the saying that we've all heard a million times at this point? 50% of my advertising is working. I just don't know which 50%.
Exactly.
Dude, right.
So crazy.
Yeah, that's
But I've heard that from business owners, and they're either resigned to it or they're just like, it's just part of
Yeah,
business.
that's
I'm
what
like,
it is.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
right.
crazy.
Yeah, that's
Let
ridiculous.
me tell you a little bit about attribution. Let me give you guys a quick story. So there's a university nearby that may or may not have changed names 17 times. Okay,
Gentlemen, we were in the
we
wrong
might
industry
know.
for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
We might know who that is. Okay, now they had a rebrand, and their advertising budget was significantly traditional at the beginning of that, like 90 traditional, 10% digital. We were working on that 10% of the digital, and we had attribution set up from start to finish. And so every month we would meet and show, hey, look what we're doing. Isn't this great? We're getting all these leads. We're sending people for applications. We're doing all this. Is great. And the traditional, they had some traditional methods of attribution, but it's difficult to tell what's going on, and it's easier with digital stuff, obviously. So the budget shifted over the next 6 months to, instead of 10% digital, 90% traditional, about 90% digital, 10% digital. It was a
flopped.
6-month swing. It flip-flopped, and it was because of attribution. And the only way you can go after that additional budget is if you're able to prove that and show it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure. Absolutely.
That's-
That's interesting, isn't it?
It's something that I've run into so many times, and I've scratched my head about. It's like attribution and knowing the right question to ask and not overlooking the answer to the question that you're asking. Like somebody says, hey, so on a basic level, it's just a verbal attribution. Jeremy, where did you hear about us? Well, I got your number off your website. That's actually not answering the question that was
Not
asked.
at all.
That's just saying I got your number off your website.
Correct.
And so if
You have to ask the right
people
question.
are not setting up that
Yeah.
attribution correctly, then someone's going to go dump $50,000 into their website and like, what?
Yeah.
That
Right.
really wasn't
Yeah,
where you needed it.
Exactly. The other thing that can happen is if I'm the marketer, I can look at the client and go, so how much is getting a new client worth to you? Right? And if they don't have an answer to that, you got to help them figure it out, because without that answer, there's no attribution. And a lot of people don't know. They're just like, well, we're growing, our revenue's growing, and those kind of things. I'm like, yeah, but if I brought you a new client, would you give me $5,000 cash? Oh yeah, that'd be great. I said, cool. Then we'll spend about $5,000 per new client to bring in, which means I need $100,000 monthly budget. And they just go,
great.
No.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you, Jeremy, based on your experience and maybe projects you've worked on, or maybe just campaigns that you've seen, give me some
Yeah.
examples of some of the best marketing that you've either been a part of or seen yourself.
Yeah, these are when I thought about this question, I I I thought of things that worked on me as being effective marketing. So, and I didn't put any White Hart or Jeremy Mace campaigns here. So,
Right,
there's
that's
no,
good. There you go.
we're just talking about outside. So, for video, one of the most effective is Dollar Shave Club. I know you guys have seen
It's
that video.
good.
Oh,
it's
my
so
God,
good.
it's so
I've used
funny.
that a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Oh, it's fantastic, and that was the majority of their budget went into producing that video when they got started. But it was such a strong premise. It was great, and then it went viral, and they paid to get it out. They had a good combo of both things, and man, when everybody is showing it to you and they're like, "What do you think, man?" I was like, "Yeah, I've seen it 100 times. It's so good." And and you can watch it with a client and you can tell them, "Hey," and that type of humor is not for every business, but it's so effective, right? You guys have got the no BS on your website. It's a similar thought process, right? It's like, listen, we're going to tell you like it is. There's a little bit of humor involved here. If you don't like it, go someplace else. And
We probably shouldn't be doing business. Yeah.
Yep. So I think that one's great. Another one that I really think is truly effective is HubSpot. HubSpot is the marketing and CRM platform, and their combination of their SEO, their blog, their email campaigns, their actual customer service and follow-up. They know what I'm doing and interacting with the site. There's chat bots. I mean, all of it, it's just a great mix. None of it feels overbearing. They're giving me the attention I need if I'm in that, and that is all inbound marketing rather than being completely outbound. And so HubSpot is just the gold standard. That's what I think to use.
They definitely.
The last one is a new one and is more social media based and digital ads, and it's manlybands.com. MANLY bands.com. Now, you would love this, Chad. You got to go check this out. I love it because, of course, I'm a nerd. They've got Lord of the Rings themed bands, wedding bands for men. Okay, so you can get you can get ones that kind of look like maybe it's a very subtle. They're very very good, but these guys targeted me because of what I like on Facebook and what I was looking at. So I'm looking at nerd culture stuff, and they knew this guy likes comics and Lord of the Rings. Let's show him that. I went to the website, and it actually, what appealed more to me were the ones that are World War II based. They've actually got a wedding band with parts of a Sherman tank in it, right? They've got bands that have like cool whiskey barrels integrated into the inner ring of it. And they're just gorgeous. But all of a sudden I start seeing those bands everywhere I'm going, man. They are following me everywhere. I've looked at the website like 3 or 4 times. I told my wife about it. And so this is an extremely effective product placement and strategy that they've approached. They know who I am. They targeted me. I saw it. I engaged. Now I'm stuck. I'm probably going to, Kim's got to make some more money so she can buy me one of these
I was getting ready to
bands.
say, you might change out your band here.
I got a cool one, but I would change it out for this. The Sherman tank is really cool.
Do they have Aragorn's ring style
They do.
of that?
Well, not. Oh my gosh, I love this nerd talk, man. No, they don't have like the snake, the Barahir's ring. It's actually a one that's based on his leather cloak and like his the kind of his feel. So they're not like nerdy. You wouldn't know. There is like a kind of a cheesy Green Lantern and a Batman ring. Some of the superhero stuff's a little cheesy, but I like the other ones. There's a ring. The Ring Wraith one is the one I want. Like it's like dark
That
metal
sounds
or
awesome.
matte
I
color.
love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
My
Can we get
10-year-old
Chad to watch this? Come on, man.
I have. I've seen some of it. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife thinks I'm crazy because I'll sit down and just get all the extended versions and just start cranking them out.
Yep, me too, man. We love them. Kim, my wife actually likes it quite a bit. She gets something out of it every time. I just think the story's so classic. It's awesome. But that combo for the rings, the Lord of the Rings rings, was just drew me right in, and it was their marketing and their branding that did it. It was had nothing to do with anybody telling me to go look at it or anything like that. I just saw the image. They were only showing it to me because they knew the stuff that I liked, and I thought that was genius.
So they got the branding right from the outset.
Yeah, they did.
They set
and
it up right.
The targeting,
they did it right. The targeting,
and the targeting was just
messaging,
on point.
right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you before we go today. Give us a few tips. Give our listeners a few tips on how they can avoid the pitfalls of bad marketing and branding, for that matter, because it's kind of all in the same bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me talk about the branding one first. So, you have to be able, and this concept goes with both. And I know it's going to sound aggressive, but you have to be willing to kill your babies.
Yes.
Okay? Yeah. Now, what this means is
That sounds a little bit harsh.
it is a little bit harsh,
Can't
but
fall in love with it.
let's talk about that company that bought us years ago, TaxSlayer. Great guys, huge Georgia fans, and I mean they make you look like a fair weather guy, Chad.
I
mean
love
they
that, though.
they
I love that.
they
That
are
excites me.
they are all in, and I did a logo for one of their pro products, and I used blue and black, and my God, they were not okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. How
Right.
dare you?
And then we were working on another project, and I used orange in one of the concepts.
Oh no, you're better off with blue and black.
Oh,
brother.
I mean,
That
I know.
Orange is a death sentence.
It's a death sentence. Right. So what's interesting is I had proof in the research that this product changed. Like they needed to have some differentiation in their product lines. If everything is silver, black, and red, then everything's silver, black, and red, and it all blends together. You got to find some way to differentiate. And so we pitched that, and it was like pulling teeth. And in fact, we weren't able to do it for almost a year and a half, and then finally they decided to go for it. So I think that I think that the colors, like being willing to do that. Another example of that is Savannah River Brewing Company. I've helped them do some labels and some stuff. And man, the owner, Mike, is such a fan of all this superhero comic book stuff. He and I's style is going to be much more illustrative and real nerd culture stuff. But that's not who goes to Savannah River Brewing Company. It's primarily some of the younger military guys. It's outdoor. It's all ages. It's younger all the way up to boomers that are sitting around there. And it needs to appeal to everybody. And so our nerd culture stuff, there can be a little bit of it, but we've overdone it there and realized, okay, we've got to pivot and we've got to come up with something that's has a wider appeal. So we've got to kill our own desires to do what we like and go for what's actually going to work in the market. So that's my advice: is be willing to kind of kill your own flesh, to give it a spiritual term, or kill your baby or whatever. You got to get it. Be willing to get rid of that so you can make a good decision for your business.
Yeah, I've always described that in terms and heard that in terms of you just don't fall in love with it.
Yeah.
Fall in love with like the foundation, the principles, the things that must be there, that work, like you said, that work in the marketplace, work in your industry. But don't be so. This is a place. Don't let your ego get too far.
I think that's the key there.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
I agree. And they're also. I'll give you. Here's a freebie, Chad. This is a freebie for you guys.
Awesome.
Man,
It's a freebie.
Please do.
If there are too many cooks in the kitchen, you have a cafeteria.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, and a cafeteria is going to produce one type of food, and it's not going to be as quality as if you can slim it down and have a head chef. So when you're working with a client, find out who that decision maker is, and if you are a client, predetermine that. Yes, I'm willing to take other ideas and other input. And maybe I'm not a decisive person, but yet I'm in charge of the company. I got to pick the logo. I don't want to let 5 or 6 other people demand what's going to work for our brand, because chances are their ego is in the way.
Yeah.
So you got to have a leader that's willing to do it and create a hierarchy and have one chef you can work with.
Yeah. Now, I will say that was profound.
I agree.
That was very, very
100%.
profound. We could actually write a small book on that.
Oh,
You know, like a toilet book that you sit and
Like a toilet book.
Yeah, right. Sure.
I think it's
yeah.
kind of getting off the rails at this point, Chad. But yeah, of course, we could totally do that.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean?
How
It's
to make a
short
crap.
read.
It's a short read. How to make a crap sandwich.
Right.
There you
And
go.
I mean,
it's
you know,
too many chefs.
just giving somebody some insight. Sure.
But I agree 100%. You get too many
Yeah, that is true.
decision makers. And isn't
Yeah.
that kind of the antithesis of a decision maker?
It
If
is.
you have that many.
Right.
Yeah. Or what I like is when you've been working with a client for 3 months, you got a great logo brand, everything is working, they're happy, everybody's happy, and then they show it to their spouse, and their spouse doesn't like it, and you're like, holy crap, why wasn't your spouse at the first
Right,
meeting?
yeah,
It's like, this is not okay. So
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's not
had that
cool.
happen too many times, and then I'm like, listen, I'm coming over to your house, and I'm sitting down, and I'm talking to this person
have a beer,
because this is the
yeah.
right thing to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
I love it.
Good stuff. Well, Jeremy, we certainly appreciate you having you on today. This is something we've been trying to do for a while, and I think our
Absolutely.
schedules just never really were able to align. So this is good, and maybe we'll get back together in the future to discuss more, because we could talk about this for days. But
Yeah.
I think we need to schedule some Lord of the Rings viewing.
Oh,
I think
man.
that's next.
oh
Please.
wow,
That's
Okay.
what we need.
Yeah.
In
Here
fact,
we go.
in
Yeah.
fact, this can just change to the Lord of the Rings podcast.
I'm in.
And
I'm in.
Chad's out. Chad's out, and we'll just
I'm
do
out
it,
of a
man.
job, I guess.
Well,
okay.
I guess that wraps it up there. We have learned all that we need to learn about branding and marketing, and we have our next mission.
Oh
Look
God.
forward to scheduling that podcast.
You're gonna have to change that background, though, man.
Man, no
just-
doubt. I mean,
just
this
a
is
little bit.
ADD material here. We're all over the place.
Just a little bit.
All right, man.
Awesome. All right, Jeremy. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
guys.
man.
Appreciate it.